Hello, everyone, and welcome to this issue of Red Talks with Robyn. This is another candidate special edition. And ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, our guest today is Tudor Dixon. Tudor, thank you so much for being here. It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I am so grateful you're here. I know how busy your schedule is, and I know, you were able to work us in, and it really means a lot to be able to have this time with you and have an opportunity for our viewers to be able to get to know a little bit more about who you really are. There's so much more to you than just a soundbite or a speech at a rally.
Right.
And we just hope to capture the human side as well as dealing with some of the issues today.
Good. Yeah,
So,
that sounds good.
Thank you. Let's just start right out of the gate with the phrase about Whitmer lied, Grandma died. I know that strikes a very significant chord for you and was a huge factor in drawing you into the race to begin with.
Right, and that's a reason why we're fighting so hard to make sure no one dies alone. So that was my story. My grandmother did not have COVID, but she was locked in a nursing home. We all know what it was to have people, loved ones, locked away from us, and even people that got sick locked away from us in hospitals. But in nursing homes, it was unique because she had already received the letter saying, don't do this. We had Governor Cuomo who had been doing this and then realized this was a mistake. Even he backed off of it. Even when Governor Cuomo backed off of it, Governor Whitmer doubled down. So we got the call that my grandmother was failing, and it was really, medically she was fine. She was really dying of a broken heart, of being locked away. And we went to the nursing home, and I was there with my 4 girls. My sister was there with her daughter. We had to hold the girls up in the window and say goodbye, and not really understanding the significance of what was happening. I stepped back and took a picture of the girls at the window, and in that picture you can see 2 windows down, a family in their window waving at their loved one. And I looked back on that and said, this can never happen again. We can never have people in our families, the matriarchs and patriarchs, but the people that we love die alone.
Right.
That we've never seen that before. Interestingly, the same thing happened to my husband's grandmother, only she was in the hospital. And because she was in the hospital and you still had to be alone, she kept pulling her oxygen mask off, and we lost her the same day. We lost my grandmother.
I didn't realize you had both of them the same day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. And what a blow to the kids trying to explain. This was really their first experience losing someone and trying to explain that you've lost both of your great-grandparents in one day. And there was already a lot of fear surrounding the virus. And I think just the handling of our kids, what they saw with the virus. My kids went to school, so I was reporting at the time. So I think I had a better idea of what was about to happen than other people. And they said to the kids, get your, come to school. This is gonna be your last day for 15 days. And I said to my girls, bring everything home from your lockers because you're not going back. I just knew they're not gonna put the kids back in school. I was watching what was happening in China, and the girls were like, no, we're gonna go back. I said, bring everything home. And that was such a shock to their little systems, because you become so close to your teacher. That's a part of your life every day. It's 8 hours of their life, and they just got ripped away. So in addition to that, then they're losing people they love, and there's no understanding of when is the ending point? When will we go back to normal? And you keep having people say, this is the new normal. And kids didn't understand. Even adults had trouble comprehending.
Right.
What does that mean? How long are they going to keep us like this?
Right.
And so I look back at my girls through that experience and say, we're never going to let that trauma happen to our children again.
How old were your girls when all of this unfolded in 2020?
So my oldest was in 5th grade. So we would have had 5th grade, 3rd grade, and 1st grade.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we moved our kids out of public school into private school because we're both working parents and didn't know what would happen the next year in public school. My girlfriend, her son stayed in public school. So my twins, my youngest went into 4th grade this year. Her youngest went into 4th grade this year. And she said, did your girls learn how to read? And they were in school. So yeah, they did. And she said, my son, I don't know what to do. He's behind. We're trying to catch him up. We're reading to him every night. and we're the parents that are involved. And she said, still, he's missed this, and the school doesn't have the resources right now to get somebody to help him. And she said, what happens to the kids that don't have parents that are involved? Well, that's what we're seeing across the state. And I haven't heard from this governor any plan to get these kids back on track. We are very, very strong on getting tutors into the classroom, making sure that each kid gets 25 hours of tutoring and they get back on track, whether it is in math, whether it's in reading, but we get our kids back on track.
I love that. I love that, because they need so much more intensive work right now because there's such a gap.
Yes. Michigan more so than other states. And I think that's what people in Michigan don't necessarily understand, or they do, and they don't have a solution for it. Because if you talk to folks outside of the state and you tell them, well, our kids were back and forth for almost 2 years, they're shocked by it. But when you tell them the numbers, when you say, look, almost 60% of our third graders are not reading at grade level, failed their reading and writing exams last year, they're shocked by that. And immediately, that's a governing issue. Well, what are they going to do to get you back? What is the solution? Because there are a few things we agree to from state government standpoint: education, public safety, and being a partner to business and giving them the tools they need and stepping away. But we have a crisis in education, and no one coming with a solution outside of Republicans.
Right, which is just a huge factor. And you mentioned third grade.
Yeah.
And we know that statistically, prisons are built based on who in third grade can or cannot read. What does that say about the future for these kids?
Right.
It's not just struggling in school, but then that benchmark specifically seems to be a cascading point.
Yes.
For a child's future.
Right, because from kindergarten to third grade, your child is learning to read. From third grade on, they're reading to learn. So that pivotal point, you have to have that skill to go on. You have to have that skill to do math. You have to have that skill for any job. And that's the difference between having an education and having an education robbed from you. And I think that's the key point here in the state of Michigan, is that right now we have too many children that are being robbed of their education. And you'll see these commercials out saying, oh, she wants to dismantle public ed. No, public ed in the state of Michigan has been dismantled. We have a crisis on our hands. That is the center of community. We have to bring it back and make sure that there is no wrong path in education for any of our children. Parents should have options, but we cannot let our education system fall apart and be dismantled.
Right. And I think so many things came to the forefront as a result of the virus.
Right.
I know so many parents who were shocked at what their kids were learning, what their kids were not learning, and the poor status of the educational system already. It's like it was a shell, but it had already been dismantled on the inside, and what we dealt with the virus just highlighted what was already there. Didn't cause what was already there, but it exposed, and then there's been no plan at all to repair.
It's been tough because you kind of have a battle between folks that are planning and folks that are on the other side of that planning. And so one of our state officials explained it to me this way. They said, we've known there was a slow-moving crisis in education for years and kept thinking, well, we'll come up with a solution. And we were 38th in the nation before COVID. Then COVID hit, and it went from a slow-moving crisis to a full-blown crisis. And now we have to, now we need someone who's going to come in and say, we need a solution immediately. But that is, what you're saying is, we had COVID. In the middle of COVID, parents start seeing things in the classrooms that are like, this is a little bit off. And there seems to be this more radical push. So in 2017, I left manufacturing to create a program for middle and high school students to bring back the pro-America message, because we were seeing this anti-American message in our schools. Well, now it's gone a step further with this sex and gender discussion. So we're seeing that from the Department of Ed. We're pushing back on that. We're saying this should not happen. And even today I had a reporter say, well, don't you think that you're eliminating discussions that need to be had with some students? And I said, we're talking about children 8 and 9 years old and younger. This is not a radical concept to say no sex and gender discussion before 4th grade.
Right.
If you can't agree to that, then what do you want to be teaching? What is the point? What you explain to me, what should you think should be going on in the classroom, and give me an excuse as to why.
Right.
So there is no reason to do this. So we are fighting back hard against that and making sure that those basics that we just said, kindergarten to 3rd grade, learning to read, get back to the basics, reading,
Right.
writing, and math.
Right.
That's
Right.
what we need to do.
Right. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. You hit a little bit on the gender issues and sex ed and the convoluted situation that we have there. Do you want to lead into Prop 3?
Yes. So that is interesting because if you look at the Michigan Department of Ed having these discussions about one of the key points there that connects to Prop 3 is you can talk to a child about how to transition without telling mom and dad.
Yes.
So Prop 3, the way it is written is that it's any individual can make decisions without parental influence.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be on sterilization as well, which
Mm-hmm.
would allow a student to get puberty blockers without mom and dad knowing, which we've seen some of the catastrophic effects of these
Yes.
puberty blockers, and children who are now adults who are now coming out and saying that they experienced this when they were 12 and 13 years old and really feel that they were not mature enough to make that decision.
Right.
So that's why we're so adamant that parents have to be involved. This is
Must,
outrageous to think that parents going to be involved. But Prop 3, what I think people don't understand is that this is a constitutional change. So someone was saying to the governor, well, if Prop 3 gets included, if it passes, then the new governor can't do anything about it. She said, no, a different governor could overthrow Prop 3 and do things. No, this is constitutional language. There's nothing that no one outside of the people voting to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way that you would be able to change this again.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that she's going to go out there and throw out every lie in the book to manipulate people into believing that this is an issue that the governor has power over when the governor simply does not.
No. It's not uncommon, sadly, in especially this election cycle, to see so much misrepresentation.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, even her commercials are filled with lies. They're all edited. They're all put
Mm-hmm.
together in manipulative ways. And what is she running on? She is running on this concept of making abortion legal up to the moment of birth.
And beyond.
Right. All of this, and all she is doing is throwing out abortion. But we're asking, where do you stand on education? Where do you stand on public safety? Where do you stand on overregulation in business? And she's totally silent on this. Well, we know where she stands. I mean, education has just been destroyed under Governor Whitmer.
Right.
We have a public safety issue across the state. Homicides have risen 30%.
It's crazy.
It's terrible.
Talk to me a little bit about the safety issues.
Yeah, so we've come out and we've presented our Safe State Plan, which is $1 billion new into public safety, law enforcement. And law enforcement, interesting, when we talk to them, they say, we don't want anything. We just want you to let us do our jobs and support us. Don't make us the enemy. Don't demonize the police. That's been the problem that we've had in the state. This governor came out and marched with defund the police.
Yes.
She came out and said she supports the spirit of defund the police. They said it was almost an instant effect that we had these people that felt that the criminals were emboldened to go after us, to hunt us down, to have fake calls that we were ambushed. Right. And why do men and women want to be on the force if they have to be concerned about getting arrested on the job or dying on the job? Mm-hmm. So we've presented this plan to recruit and retain police officers, to have incentives for officers to come to the state, to make sure they have the mental health that they need, help that they need, and to make sure that they have the technology and the equipment that they need. We think that's really important, but overall, just having their back as well.
Which is huge.
Yes.
It is absolutely huge. There's enough stress in law enforcement, the basic job itself, let alone when you have the added complication of having to worry about the phrase, the spirit of defund the police, in addition to that.
Right.
It just, I can tell you, and you guys have probably, some of you heard me say this before, I'm so grateful to live where I do because our sheriff is amazing. And I know that he's got our community and he knows that we've got his back and that of the team that he works with. They're amazing. So super grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not everybody can say that.
No, and certainly not in the state right now.
Right. So what is something that you don't usually talk about in an interview, but you would like voters to know about Tudor Dixon?
Well, probably my personal experience with healthcare and why I think it's so important that we look at healthcare in a different way in the state as we see some of these. I think it was Sparrow that just laid off a bunch of workers. We're seeing a lot of jobs lost in our healthcare industry. Yes. You and I both share breast cancer.
Mm-hmm. Survivor.
So, yes.
Yes.
But that's scary when you go to, after the pandemic, I went to my doctor's offices and my doctors had all left. So,
wow.
Yeah, lost 3 different medical professionals. And I'm seeing that across the state. People are either being let go. People have left the healthcare industry. We had a lot of people leave because of the stress. And I don't blame them. The amount of stress.
It was brutal.
People had never seen that before.
No.
So how do we get people back into the healthcare industry? How do we incentivize them to go to the classes? How do we start this in high school and have those nurses ready to go when they graduate and then be able to continue to get continuing education and move up the ladder as they get more education on the job as well. So that's very important to me because I think it's one of those things that you never expect to have happen to you.
For sure.
And then it does.
Yeah.
And you go, I really want to have professionals around me.
Yes. And I know for me in that situation, it was vital that I was able to seek out a second opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I was not at all comfortable with option number 1, either for surgeon or oncologist.
I had the same experience.
And so option 2, just being able to have that pool to draw from where you feel confident with the treatment that you're going to get.
Right. And that was interesting for me because you go in and gosh, they see a breast cancer patient every 5 minutes, doesn't matter. You can come in and out and they'll never remember you again. And I had the same experience. The first one I was like, this is not me. And I think that's so important that people understand that when you have a health crisis, you have to check your gut because your gut's going to tell you a lot. And and I think so many people just go to the doctor, trust the doctor. But I just had this feeling it's a different person. And the doctor that I ended up choosing, like I said, sees a patient every 5 minutes. And probably about 3 to 4 years after my surgery, he called me and he said, I have a woman here. She's young. She's in her 30s. Same cancer you had. She's really scared. I thought maybe you could talk her through it.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was nice because I knew it was the right guy.
Yes. Yes. Because most don't take the time.
Right. To all those years later, I think she went through this. It was a similar situation. The young woman had kids. So when I had cancer, my twins were 2 and then 4 and 6. And, no matter how old your children are, when you get diagnosed, that's the first thing you think. What will they do?
Right.
So that was her situation. And she was very scared and she didn't speak English very well. And so he said, she's really concerned about what this will mean for her life. Can you talk her through it and explain where you are today? Which was very nice.
Wonderful. So how many years have you been out of it?
So I am 7 years now.
Wonderful.
7 years, yeah. October of 2015.
Excellent.
Yep. Yeah, that was when I was 38. So that's a shocking diagnosis.
It is. It is. It is. Economy. Huge factor. Right. I know you've been with Marlena.
Yes.
And you've seen firsthand impact to a variety of industries of business.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about what you see there and what solutions you're bringing to the table.
So it's twofold because we have the pandemic and then we have the overall policies of this governor. Both of those have been catastrophic for our businesses. As you've seen, the latest article showing that Michigan lost more small businesses than any other state. We were in Gaylord at the Iron Pig, so similar story to Marlena. They stayed open. We had a rally there. We went to Merlina's today and we had a rally there. The interesting thing is when we left the Iron Pig, I had a woman take me aside and she said, one thing you might not know is that he stayed open against all the odds. He fought, he had the fines, he was able to push through and keep people employed and have people still come to the restaurant. Every other restaurant on the street closed permanently.
Wow.
So they were afraid to go up against the lockdowns, but ultimately they lost everything. Their livelihood, their business, their property, everything was lost. And so I think that's key. When we look back at what happened with the pandemic, we had restaurants closed longer than any other state. We had these outrageous mandates and requirements, but there were so many businesses that were non-essential. I had a guy who said, I have a greenhouse and they put a note up on my greenhouse saying, if you continue curbside service, you're going to go to jail. And he said, I still have the note. And so I'm waiting for that to be shared. So he said, I can share this with you, but that was the threat. He said, now the guys down the street that were growing marijuana, they were allowed to have curbside service.
Isn't that the same process?
That's what he said. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we grow everything the same.
Yeah.
So, and that was really why winners and losers? Why like that? But over and above that, we still have this governor weaponizing her agency. So we saw this, a lot of people recognize this when the health departments were going into the schools and saying, even if your school is saying no masks, you have to wear masks. You have to do this. You have to do that. And if you're not, we'll shut you down. I think it was in Zealand that there was a school there that said, we don't need masks. All of our parents agree. The health department said, we'll shut you down if you don't. So we saw that weaponization, but that's something that still happens in our economic situation today in Michigan. We have all of these incentives going out now. We're seeing $715 million going to a Chinese corporation, but we have existing businesses that say we can't expand because we can't get a license, we can't get a permit. We're being just crushed by the bureaucracy in state government. And this is her philosophy, that we own you. State government is in control of you instead of a partner with you in control of you. That has to stop immediately. We have a massive regulatory system. We believe that if we can reduce regulations by 40%, we will be able to not only see businesses thrive, but we'll see a lot more entrepreneurism in the state of Michigan. In areas that need to build from within. And we want to make it easier for all communities to build from within. That is a goal of mine. That it includes making it easier to get a loan, making it easier to get a piece of property, making it easier to get the licensing and the permitting that you need. Those are opportunities for us to expand. Infrastructure is a huge problem in the state. We're putting our dollars into incentives, but we're not looking at this as a whole package of what we need to do to prepare to make sure that the site is there for the businesses to come. If you build it, they will come. That is truly an opportunity here in the state of Michigan. Also, inflation has crushed people across the country. You see these massive numbers. This is a governor who's had an opportunity to have a gas tax holiday. She's refused this. This is a governor that's had the opportunity to reduce income tax. She's vetoed that. She's had a number of opportunities to put money back into the pockets of the people and vetoed every single time. Right now, we're at a crucial point. We see energy costs going up. Energy costs directly affect inflation, because if you pay more in gas prices, everything that moves has to be a higher price then. Right. So we're talking about all of our manufacturing products, all of our food, all of our clothing, everything that you buy in the state of Michigan is going to be higher than other states. Our gas prices are higher than any other state right now outside of California. We are at the top of the list for gas prices. We could have a gas tax holiday. She has refused. We have a record tax revenue right now. So there is that opportunity to try to relieve this a little bit for the people of Michigan. But also, let's not forget that she is insistent on closing down Line 5. That is catastrophic.
Yes, it is. I was thinking that as you were saying it.
Right. So that would be devastating for the state of Michigan to have Line 5 shut down, because you're going to see increased costs in material goods. You're going to see increased costs in gas, increased costs in propane. For people heating their homes, the prices are going to go up. And for jet fuel, for airline tickets, prices are going to go up. So that's the biggest way we can have an impact, is just to make sure we do not vote her back in and we save the state from any higher cost for energy.
Yes. We've got to save our families. I mean, we're here in Michigan and it's October.
Right.
You know, we've had a mild fall.
Right.
But today is supposed to be, if the weatherman is right, our last day in the 70s for a long time.
I know. That's a bummer. Let's not talk about it.
But that goes to the point of dealing
Heating.
with the inflation and
Yeah.
dealing with heating and what we're hearing out of events in Europe.
Right. Yes.
And those things are sweeping across, and now our season is starting to turn. We have an opportunity to turn this around by making Michigan red again.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, very important.
Yes. So many issues. It's like there's been a fire on every front.
Yes.
And one of my things is, it doesn't matter what topic you take, pick something that you're passionate about and get engaged.
Yes, exactly. And we've seen so many people do that. And I think that's really, if you look at me doing this is me doing this because I saw this and said, we have a huge opportunity to make sure that we have the freedoms that we always have. So same with the person that runs for school board. It's the same with the city commissioner, county commissioner, those folks. Anytime you can get involved, even being involved in the election process is super important.
Right. And everybody taking their position, everybody getting involved, everybody understanding the connection between politics and life.
Right.
That's one thing that I saw so much, and hearing it from my girls too. Mine are a little older than yours. As of this last birthday, mine are now 25, 24, and 22. But they're like, I used to think of politics as something that they happened up in Lansing or happened over in DC, but now it's right in my face.
Yes.
And they're understanding that connection. We've said it for a long time, elections have consequences. But now, with the crises that we're experiencing, people are really understanding, when I check this box, here's what happens in my life.
Yes. And that's why I think it's so important that not only you go out and vote and really vote red down the ticket, but talk to other people, because there's a lot of people on the fence. There's a lot of people who are not typical midterm voters.
Yes.
The proposals on the ballot, they need to fully understand. If you don't understand them, please try to fully understand them, because they are very scary. We would never have safe elections again in the state of Michigan if Prop 2 were to pass. It's very scary.
Yes.
And get those people to the polls. Make sure they get out there, because you have to make your voice heard. If you don't vote, your vote doesn't count.
Right. So, yes, and we've got tools to that effect as well. My personal message is vote no on 03. And I've spoken with Jeff from Secure My Vote and Right to Life and Faith to Action and Brian, and we need to be able to get the messaging out.
Yeah.
And so having tools, having podcasts that you can just hit share and send that over to your friends and let the experts do the talking for you, or bring the candidate right into the room, Yes. So just doing our part to be able to message, to be able to connect as many people as possible with you and our other representatives on the Republican side of the ticket. Thoughts, comments, questions, anything else that we haven't discussed already that you would like to share a little bit more on?
Really just, we have a huge opportunity in this state to bring back education, to make sure that we have parents' involvement in education, and to make sure that we're focused on the basics. Education to me is key. It's our foundation. But also to improve public safety. Those are two of the things that people look at when they want to come to a state. And if we are failing in either of those, then we're not going to get the population that we need. But also, we're not being fair to the people that are here. So we have to make sure we take care of our citizens the best way possible. And then making sure that people can have the American dream, that the overregulation is not crushing the American dream. And right now in the state of Michigan, it is. That's why we're so adamant about bringing private business back, bringing small business back, and supporting those businesses, and making sure that if there are taxpayer dollars that are going out, they're going to the best possible place.
Yes. And, along with the safety in the schools, that impacts your home values.
Right, exactly.
And then it just dominoes from there. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today in our Red Talks with Robyn, the Candidate Edition episode with Tudor Dixon, our next Republican governor. We appreciate you being here. As always, look for Tudor. For those of you who are currently members, look for Tudor at being highlighted by the National Federation of Republican Women as one of the women leading the red wave. There will be more coming out about this, and we're very excited Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Until next time.
Thank you.